Caesar, Part 1, The Plain of Sands. Chapter 8. The Echo and the Flame. Hafran, border village of the Plain of Sands, south of Erios Caesar. 5 days had passed in Hafran since Caesar's arrival. The wind had shifted, not the desert wind, another one, something subtler. A shiver in the air, a strange silence in the alleys. Glances lingering just a little too long. Caesar did not know why, but he could feel it. Something was moving around him, like dunes changing shape, without anyone seeing them move. Since his arrival, Kara had hardly left his side. She invited herself to every meal, accompanied him to the well, introduced him to the merchants she respected, the old women of the marketplace, a few quiet craftsmen, and children far too curious for their own good. She seemed to be weaving a warm, gentle web around him. Caesar kept his distance, not out of pride, out of fear, perhaps, out of instinct. He still spent his nights in the shelter she had prepared for him, not far from his mother's tent. In the evenings, they spoke in hushed voices by the light of an oil lamp, for hours. She asked questions. He answered very few, yet she seemed to understand. Even his silences, he did not know exactly what she saw in him, but he could feel the warmth of her gaze. He had seen her look away when he stepped out of the bath. He had seen her smile quietly when he spoke. He had seen her believe, and perhaps that was what frightened him most. For a moment, his eyes drifted down to his belt, beneath his tunic. The kriss rested against his skin, cold as a drop of shadow. Whenever he drew the blade even slightly, it drank the light around it. He felt its presence even when he did not touch it. A taut thread stretched between his heart and the object, as though the voice had left behind a breath, a pulse. He closed his hand around it, not here, not in front of. Not yet 5 days had passed. Since the voice had spoken to him a second time, Caesar had not mentioned it again. He did not dare, but at night he dreamed. Fragments of sand, flashes of light, a dull pain in his chest, like a warning. Sometimes he awoke with the taste of fire on his tongue, and sometimes he saw her, not Kara, a female figure standing atop a dune, her back turned toward him. Her clothes hung loosely from her emaciated body. Her short, tangled hair whipped against the back of her neck in the wind. She seemed covered in dust or blood. She raised her arms toward a black sky. She screamed without a sound, a silent scream, a scream of despair, as though the world had just come to an end. A call. That morning, he awoke with a start. He had dreamed again, but this time, someone else had awakened at the same moment. Kara sat cross-legged beside the flame, jaw clenched, eyes distant. "Did you have a nightmare?" she asked, her throat dry. He slowly shook his head. "No, not a nightmare, a dream." But it burned. Caesar said no more, yet a chill ran down his spine. That day, Kara began speaking about him to the elders, to the young, to anyone who had listened to her without complaint for years. She told them a man had arrived, a weary man, but one carrying a message. She did not say it came from God, not yet, but she told them he had seen things at the market. People looked at her with affection, sometimes with amusement, yet some listened. Caesar watched it all from a distance. He had not yet decided whether he should thank her or stop her. In the evening, she returned with names. 2 women intrigued, a boy, far too curious, a silent craftsman who claimed to have seen the moon go dark 2 nights earlier. I tell them nothing. Caesar, I do not lie, I simply speak of you. As I see you, he did not answer. He merely watched her. And that evening, for the first time, he found her beautiful. The next day, Kara convinced him they needed companions. Together, she said, it will be easier to survive the long mission ahead of us, and we will be more convincing. For 3 days, Kara went from house to house. She knew exactly how to do it. She began gently. A few anecdotes, a little intrigue. Then, once curiosity had taken hold, she spoke of the one voice, of César's mission. People asked more and more questions. Soon, a group of nearly 30 individuals had gathered around them. César remained shy, but Kara excelled in the art of speaking. Whenever she spoke, people fell silent. She spoke from the heart, with the conviction of those who know. Beside her, César softly repeated the words of God, and she carried them, fed them, turned them into fire. He was the voice. She was its echo. With her small notebook, a sharpened quill, and black ink, she transcribed every word César spoke as though they were divine teachings, but she made him repeat them several times, accurately. Paper. Notebooks were rare, expensive. They could be used to write the history of the world, or simple stories for children, so she was careful. Sometimes she corrected him, she rephrased, restructured, brought order to his thoughts. As their conversations multiplied, everything became clearer to him. She had that gift. He had none, but she understood everything, and through Kara, the voice became truth. On the 8th day, César brought a meal to his mother, as he always did, but this time, a smile lingered at the corner of his lips. He entered the tent with a satisfaction he had never known before. "Mother, it's happening. People are beginning to believe us. Tomorrow, 11 people will leave with us. César, you are resourceful. Oh, it isn't me, you know. It's mostly Kara. She's incredible. Of course, we convinced more than 30 people, but few are brave. In the end, only 11 are coming with us. We'll be 13. He stopped himself. 14 with you, Mother. Of course, she smiled. That is wonderful, César. I am happy, but do not think too much about me. A long journey awaits you. I might become a burden. Never, he burst out. I will save the world, but I would let the world burn if it meant saving you. She stared at him for a long moment. Very well, César. Now go prepare your things for the journey ahead. Yes, you're right. See you later, Mother. He left the tent. Then, as he often did, he returned a second later, his expression softer. And here's your meal. He had kept the plate in his hands the entire time. Thank you. He stepped closer, placed the plate beside her, then stood still for a moment. And there's this girl. Samira, he said with a smile. Kara calls her her little sister. She's incredible, Mother. We can trust her, I'm sure of it. Apparently, she was trained by her grandmother. She knows herbs, fevers, remedies. A true healer. He paused, eyes shining with childlike hope. She's still young, barely 20, but perhaps she could help you. The old woman turned her head slightly away. No, my son. I want no one but you to see me in this state. You know that. Your meals and your ointments are more than enough. César slowly nodded. Moved. As you wish, Mother. He left the tent a second time, this time for good. Outside, the desert wind seemed lighter than usual. By now, César and Kara had grown accustomed to talking every evening. Their beds side by side before sleep claimed them. Sometimes they spoke of other things, faraway adventures, poetry, childhood memories. Tomorrow, they would set out to win over the cities and villages of Erios. But first, they needed sleep. That night, just as drowsiness began to take them, a strange sound echoed from the edge of the village. Kara immediately sat upright. Ravagers! César opened one eye, then half rose, listening carefully. His expression softened. They're only hyenas, he said. They looked at one another, then burst out laughing, a real laugh. Simple, beautiful, they held each other's gaze. César's heart pounded, and he could feel Kara's heart, beating in unison with his own. Then, in a low but steady voice, he asked, Kara, would you become my first disciple? In Kara's eyes there was a spark, no, a flame. She believed in him. She was convinced, or perhaps she was beginning to love him. Together, they would save the world.